I fell off the high wall and saw my husband walk away with his first love in his arms. My body was dragged away by the zombie king, but he left a blood-red countdown on my arm. 7 days later, I came back to life and became the only queen who could control zombies. I raised a zombie tide, forced my husband to tear up the marriage contract in public. He knelt and begged me to love him again. Of course not. I smiled and threw the ring into the fire. I was determined to make him regret what he did. He held me in the ruins. Crying, he said, "Jiang Yue, if you die, I'll die with you." I turned and stabbed him right in the heart. Too late. I'll be waiting for you in hell. The firelight revealed the corpse spots on my neck. Jiang Yue, for the base, you have to die. Lu Yan's voice, as cold as the wind outside the city wall. He was my husband of 3 years, and the supreme commander of this apocalypse base. I looked at him in disbelief. Behind him, Su Qingya leaned out, fragile in his arms, but with a victorious smirk on her lips. "Can't you understand, sister?" Brother Lu Yan said, "Your ability fatally attracts the zombie king. If you jump down, the zombie king will be lured away." I felt ice cold, my blood frozen solid. My ability is healing. Since when did it become bait for the zombie king? Lu Yan, look at me. I tried to find a trace of pity in his face, a trace of hesitation. There was nothing, only a bottomless coldness. He didn't even spare me another glance. He turned to leave with Su Qingya. "Don't blame me. It's for the greater good." With that, he prepared to go. He stared at me coldly, then suddenly pushed me off with his hand on my shoulder. The force sent me falling backward, weightless, the wind roaring past my ears. The last image I saw was Lu Yan turning away, protecting Su Qingya tightly in his arms. That gesture, he'd done it for me countless times. In that moment, my heart died completely. My body crashed heavily into the sea of zombies below the wall. The excruciating pain of shattering bones shot through my body. The stench of rot and decay flooded my nose. I closed my eyes in despair. I wished I could become a vengeful spirit, go back and tear those two bastards apart. My consciousness faded. Just as I thought I'd be devoured, a deafening roar sounded. The zombies around me seemed to hit pause. They scattered and prostrated on the ground. A massive beast, covered in bone armor, appeared before me. The zombie king, its crimson eyes fixed on me. Its crimson eyes stared at me, devoid of any sign of life. I closed my eyes in despair, waiting for death. It placed me on the rooftop. I thought I had escaped. The next second, its sharp claws pierced through my left arm. The searing pain made me scream. Blood flowed from my arm. Agony washed over me. A bloody number 7 was left on my arm. My bones felt like they were shattered inch by inch, then forcefully reassembled. My blood boiled in my veins. The muscles under my skin twisted. I curled up on the ground in agony. I passed out. While unconscious, memories of Lu Yan kept flashing through my mind. He once took a zombie's claw from me, carried me on his back for 3 days and nights. He once knelt on one knee in front of everyone, saying Jiang Yue was the only light in his life. Those sweet vows have now become the sharpest knives, cutting piece by piece, slowly killing my foolish love. Hatred grew in my shattered heart. The bloody number on my arm jumped from 7 to 6. I felt a new surge of power. Stop. A zombie wandering downstairs actually stopped, looking up blankly. A flicker of shock rose in my heart, followed by boundless ecstasy. "Try again. Come here." The zombie turned stiffly and walked step by step toward the building I was in. I can really control them. I slowly got up from the ground and walked to the edge of the rooftop. These monsters. Now, my capital for revenge. I looked up at the brightly lit base in the distance. Lu Yan, Su Qingya, get ready to die. I'm back. Countdown, day 5. I stand on the tallest building in the abandoned city. They are my eyes, my ears, my army for revenge. These past few days, I've gone through a hellish transformation. My body is now completely immune to the zombie virus. My skin lost all color, and my body temperature dropped to freezing. The hot soup noodles I used to love now make me nauseous just by smelling them. The hot soup noodles I used to love now just make me nauseous. What I crave is the cold, pure energy inside those crystals. I use zombies as my eyes and ears, sneaking into abandoned cities. Lu Yan announced to everyone that I tragically died on a mission. No body left. The base held a grand memorial for me. The day after the memorial, he announced that in 7 days, he would marry Su Qingya. He can't wait. Every time the countdown numbers jump, it brings deeper mutations. Under the skin on my neck, faint blood-red lines begin to appear, like a strange, eerie bruise. I look into the shattered mirror at that face, both familiar and strange. This ghostly look I can never go back. It's fine. The old Jiang Yue is dead. She died the moment Lu Yan pushed her off the high wall. I start to screen my army. I discard the weak, ordinary zombies. I only pick those that, after mutation, have speed and strength, the elite. I'm going to give Lu Yan a wedding gift he'll never forget. Day 3 of the countdown. For the first time, I felt the presence of the zombie king. Not through sight, but a mental connection. It's somewhere in this city, staring at me coldly. It gave me new life and power. I stand high above, looking far toward Lu Yan's base. It's brightly lit. Day 2 of the countdown. Thousands of elite zombies lurk in the city ruins, waiting for my command. I change into a white dress I found in an abandoned bridal shop. I love this color. It's completely different from red, because when blood stains it, it looks especially vivid. I look at the pale, cold version of myself in the mirror. My eyes are deep, bottomless pools of cold. The last day of the countdown, the night before the wedding. I must sneak into the base. I want to see their wedding with my own eyes. I want to personally take back what belongs to me. I command a few zombies that still look intact, make them mimic human movements, and blend into a group of survivors out scavenging for supplies. They wear tattered clothes, their faces smeared with mud. No one notices anything wrong. The base guards have long been numb, just doing a cursory check before letting them in. I follow behind them, using my newly gained speed and stealth abilities. Using my newfound speed and stealth, I slip through the defense lines like a ghost. Familiar streets, familiar buildings. This used to be my home. Nothing has changed here. The roses I planted are still blooming, but there are plants I don't recognize by the flower bed. Everything seems the same, but everything has changed. I look around in confusion. I hide in the shadows, watching the patrol pass by. Their faces show the relief of survivors. Did you hear? The commander is giving Miss Sue a perfect wedding. He even took out the last bottles of red wine from the storeroom. No kidding. Miss Sue is the commander's true love. Not like that Jiang Yue. If she hadn't lured the zombie king, we wouldn't have lost so many brothers. I think she's a jinx. Good riddance. My nails dig deep into my palms, but I feel no pain at all. The hatred in my heart rages like a storm. I quietly arrive outside the command center building, ready to sneak in. Through the huge floor-to-ceiling windows, I see Lu Yan and Su Qingya. Su Qingya is nestled in Lu Yan's arms. Lu Yan looks down, listening patiently. His face shows a tenderness I've never seen before. He gently strokes her hair. He gently stroked her hair. That gentle profile was once my lifelong obsession. I heard Su Qingya's sweet, coquettish voice. Ah Yan, the wedding dress tomorrow still isn't pretty enough. Not as good as the one Jiang Yue wore last time. Silly, a woman like her. How could she compare to you? Tomorrow, I'll make you the most beautiful bride in the world. My heart felt like it was gripped tightly by an invisible hand. I left silently and slipped into our former bedroom. It had completely changed. All my things were gone. All Su Qingya's clothes and makeup. The air was thick with her perfume. The photo on the table stung my eyes. In the corner under the bed, I found a dusty box. Opened it. Inside were all my photos, carelessly thrown in. The top one was a photo of me and Lu Yan. In the photo, I was smiling innocently, happily nestled in his arms. I picked up the photo. My fingertips gently traced his once gentle face. Then, with force, I tore it in two. At the very bottom of the box, I found that ring. The ring he had once put on my finger himself. The countdown on my arm was faintly burning. The number 1 seemed to burn through my skin. The number 1 seemed to burn through my skin. Late at night, I stand on the highest bell tower of the base. Below, the lights in the command tower are still on. I can imagine how they are in love and entangled. Tomorrow, the wedding will be held in the central square of the base. That's where we once swore our love. I'll make that place their hell. The wedding march echoes across the central square. The survivors wear fake smiles on their faces, offering blessings to their commander and his new wife. Lu Yan is in a crisp military uniform, handsome and dashing. Beside him, Su Qingya wears a gorgeous wedding gown. She smiles like a princess. A perfect match. The officiant says, Mr. Lu Yan, do you take Su Qingya as your wife? Whether I do not. An icy voice, not loud, but clearly fills the entire square. Everyone turns to look. I stand at the entrance of the square, in a white dress. On the hem are dried dark red bloodstains. The whole place falls dead silent. The lively square becomes extraordinarily quiet. Lu Yan's smile freezes. He looks at me in terror, as if he's seen a ghost. Jiang Yue. Su Qingya screams and hides behind Lu Yan. She hid behind Lu Yan. Impossible. Are you human or ghost? I ignored her. I just raised my hand. and snapped my fingers softly. The next second, a deafening roar like a tsunami came from the base perimeter. The ground began to tremble. The sturdy alloy door was slammed open by a tremendous force. A zombie horde, an endless tide of zombies like a black flood, poured into the base from all directions. The survivors' smiles instantly turned to terror. Screams and cries pierced the sky. Lu Yan's face turned pale. He drew his gun, but found his hands trembling uncontrollably. He looked at me, his eyes filled with fear, with disbelief. "It's you. You did this." I sneered and walked toward him step by step, each step feeling like a stab to his heart. The zombie horde behind me stopped at the edge of the square. Countless hollow eyes all stared at everyone on the platform, silently declaring my dominion. "Lu Yan, long time no see. What have you done?" Lu Yan pointed at me, his lips trembling. "I'm just here to take back what's mine." From my chest, I took out a document. It was their marriage certificate. I borrowed it from the registrar's office last night. I handed it to Lu Yan. My voice was cold, without a trace of emotion. "Tear it up." Su Qinya screamed and lunged at me, trying to grab the marriage certificate. "Lu Yan, don't listen to her. She's a monster." I didn't even look at her, just snapped my fingers again. A super fast mutant zombie instantly charged onto the platform. Its claws stopped right in front of her throat. She collapsed to the floor in terror. Her white wedding dress was stained. Lu Yan's mental defenses completely crumbled. He looked at me, his eyes full of fear and desperation. "Yu, please, don't do this. I'm begging you." "I told you. Tear it up." His hands trembling, he took that document symbolizing his new marriage. Under the watch of thousands of survivors and countless zombies, he personally tore it into shreds. Paper scraps flew everywhere, like a grand mockery. I watched his pathetic state. A surge of vengeful satisfaction welled up inside me. "Lu Yan, this is just the beginning. The price for betraying me. You haven't even come close to paying it off." The shreds of the marriage certificate fluttered like snowflakes at Lu Yan's feet. He closed his eyes in despair. His legs gave way. In front of everyone, he fell straight to his knees. He looked at me desperately. His eyes were full of regret and fear, but I would never forgive him. This former base commander, once so high and mighty, now knelt before me like a dog. I sneered. I looked away from his vacant face and saw the diamond ring meant for Su Qinya in his hand. I snatched it away, twirling it between my fingers. "This is your promise to her?" Looking at the diamond ring, the cold diamond reflected his pale face. He looked at me, at a loss. Su Qinya collapsed on the ground, trembling with fear, threatened by zombies. He cried out in despair. She pointed at me, hysterically screaming at Lu Yan. "Lu Yan, she's a monster. She's not human anymore. Kill her." Lu Yan ignored her. He just knelt on the ground, confessing to me over and over, begging for my forgiveness. Yu, I regret it. I really regret it. Please come back. I'll give you the commander position. I'll give you everything. Just come back." He was crying and pleading, trying to move me with our old bond. When he pushed me off the high wall back then, did he have any pity at all? I let out a cold laugh, spinning the ring on my finger. You think I'm still that Jiang Yue who loved you foolishly?" My voice wasn't loud, but it made his crying stop abruptly. I didn't look at him anymore. With a flick of my wrist, I threw the diamond ring into the blazing bonfire beside the wedding. With a puff, the ring was swallowed by the flames. The fire shot up, illuminating my pale face, and also the lividity on my neck. "You were wrong, Lu Yan." My voice was low and hoarse. I stopped being alive a long time ago. Lu Yan's pupils contracted sharply. He stared at the lividity on my neck, his eyes shifting from shock to horror, and finally to utter terror. He finally realized that standing before him was not the Jiang Yue he knew, but a creature returned from hell, a true monster. "From today on, I make the rules." I looked around at the terrified survivors in the square, my voice reaching every corner. "Obey me, or become rations for my army. Your choice." After saying that, I turned around and walked down the platform, without looking back even once, very resolute. The zombie horde automatically parted to make way for me. I didn't look back again. It went smoothly. Behind me were the desperate wails of Lu Yan and Su Qinya, and the dead silence of the entire base's survivors. He looked at the chaotic scene on the screen in despair. He punched the wall, venting his frustration. Su Qinya's spirit had completely collapsed. She was no longer that fragile white moonlight. She tore at her hair like a madwoman, screaming hysterically at Lu Yan. "It's all your fault, Lu Yan. It's all your fault. You made me like this. I could have lived a good life." Lu Yan, annoyed by her noise, slapped her backhand. "Shut up. You think I wanted this?" In the office that once symbolized power, they accused and attacked each other. I would occasionally watch through the surveillance, observing their ugly behavior coldly, watching them fall from their high pedestal into the muddy hell. It gave me a sick pleasure, this torturous thrill. The situation in the base was getting worse. The streets were full of misery, fighting for a little food. People started brawling, even killing each other. Former neighbors, friends, had now become enemies. That's human nature. Lu Yen still tried to make a last-ditch effort. He secretly repaired a shortwave radio, trying to ask for help from other bases outside, but it was all in vain. My zombie horde has already jammed all electromagnetic signals in the entire area. He'll never get it out. I have people send them the simplest food and water every day, just enough to keep them alive. I want them to rot slowly in endless despair and fear. I stand on the high wall. Inside is a prison of fear. Outside is my loyal army. This kingdom founded by Lu Yan himself is now my playground. The thrill of revenge didn't last long. A sense of emptiness began to spread in my heart. That day, I walked aimlessly through the base, reflecting on my recent experiences. When I passed an alley, I stopped. This is where I first met Lu Yan. I was being chased by a few zombies. In despair, he descended like a god and saved me. The image of him smiling at me flashed through my mind without warning. He shielded me behind him. His strong arms were my only support. "Don't be afraid. I'm here." His voice once instantly calmed me. Now, it's nothing but endless irony. I kept walking. I saw a man holding half a moldy bread. Carefully puts it in a little girl's mouth. That little girl's skin and bones. But the way she looked at the man was full of trust and dependence. The man patted her head, a bitter but gentle smile on his face. I stopped in my tracks and stood still for a long time. "There was a time," he said, "when the apocalypse ends, we'll have a daughter. Then the three of us, in the yard, watching the sunrise and sunset. In the dead of night, I sit alone in the empty command center. The vows we once made still echo in my ears. Jiang Yue, I, Lu Yan, in this life, only love you. This ring represents my eternal promise." What a huge joke. A familiar pain stabs through my heart. It's the remnants of human Jiang Yue's emotions. I find myself numb to the cries and pleas of survivors. But the hatred for Lu Yan is still terrifyingly clear. This hatred sustains me and tortures me. I had a dream, but when I woke, all I saw was the cold console and the endless darkness outside the window. I raised my hand and found ash on my fingertips. The lividity on my neck seems darker. I force myself, keeps replaying the moment he pushed me off the wall, letting my hatred grow stronger, remembering Su Qingya's defiant smile in his arms. These images to drown out those fake happy memories. They would weaken my resolve for revenge. I spoke into the communicator and gave new orders. Tighten the encirclement, launch small-scale attacks. I'll accelerate their despair. I came to the cell where Lu Yan was held again. To see him, he looked haggard beyond recognition. His once handsome face now only showed fear and despair. When he saw me, a flicker of hope lit up his eyes. I stared at him coldly. My heart no longer stirred. Now, I am the zombie tide queen. My mission is destruction. The countdown has only 1 hour left. I coldly looked at the tattoo on my arm. It had turned pitch black, exuding an ominous aura. I clenched my fist. The entire base was filled with a deathly despair. I'm ready to launch the final assault. All the survivors are hiding in their rooms, trembling. They know judgment is coming. I arrived at the base's core defense control room. This was once Lu Yan's forbidden area. No one but him was allowed in. Now I felt like I had the run of the place. I looked at the complex, blinking lights and screens on the console. I remembered Lu Yan had proudly shown me this defense system he designed himself. My fingertips gently touched the red button on the main control panel. It was the blood on my fingertips. Under the power of the Corpse King, it had become the key to turning everything on and off. A flash of blood-red light swept across. All the defense systems of the entire base instantly shut down. A piercing, shrill alarm blared through the air. That was the final death knell for Lu Yan's kingdom. Outside the base, the impatient zombie horde, the moment they got my command, let out an earth-shattering roar. They were like a flood of wild beasts breaking free from their shackles and broke through the last fragile line of defense. Buildings were collapsing, Flames were raging. Screams of agony wove together into a symphony of the apocalypse. In the prison cell, Lu Yan heard the alarm and rushed to the window like a madman. He saw the line of defense being broken through, and saw the zombie horde engulf the home he built with his own hands. His eyes were filled with despair and devastation. Su Qingya screamed in terror at the zombies pouring in through the window. She ran around the room like a headless chicken, but there was nowhere to run. I stood at the highest point of the command center, watching coldly as the slaughter I orchestrated unfolded. He seemed to want to save Su Qingya, but was quickly scattered by the surging horde. He struggled in the crowd of corpses. Roaring, he finally experienced the despair I once felt. My face showed no expression, but inside, a twisted satisfaction surged. My revenge was finally about to be complete. My heart was almost ecstatic. Lu Yan, your kingdom was finally about to fall. The base had completely fallen. Towering flames dyed the sky blood red. Like fire dragons, the horde roamed among the ruins. They no longer roared, but silently carried out my will. I walked among the corpses and flames, like a queen surveying her domain. Jiang Yue, a hoarse roar came. I let out a furious roar. Lu Yan, covered in blood, stumbled through the horde, running toward me. The zombies that could tear any living person apart as he passed all stepped aside. He rushed to me. Desperately, he held me tightly in his arms, trying to bring me back. His body was trembling violently. One tears. Up, no, Yue, I'm sorry, Yue. He was like a child, crying in my ear over and over, apologizing over and over. I was really wrong. I shouldn't have pushed you. I shouldn't have betrayed you. His voice choked, full of endless regret. You should just kill me. Kill me in the cruelest way. He held me so tight, as if trying to melt me into his bones. He sobbed, his voice carrying a final plea. Jiang Yue, if you die, I'll go with you. We'll die together. Don't leave me again. I broke free from his arms, with all my strength, without a moment's hesitation. My eyes were cold, and in my hand, somehow, there was a sharp dagger, picked up from the rubble. The blade gleamed in the firelight, with a chilling light. The sharp dagger looked even more sinister. Lu Yan saw the knife in my hand, but there was no fear in his eyes. Instead, a glimmer of relief and expectation. He thought I would soften in the end. He thought I would still love him. Too late. I rasped, my voice stripped of all human emotion. I'll wait for you in hell. I turned the knife around. Lu Yan's body froze. Blood slowly seeped out. The light in his eyes quickly faded, fading away quickly, leaving only endless pain. He opened his mouth, as if to say something, but in the end, nothing came out. His body went limp, and he collapsed in my arms. I held his slowly cooling body, my face expressionless. It was over. I instinctively tightened my grip on the dagger. A massive stream of information flooded into my mind in an instant. It wasn't human language, but fragments of images, waves of sensations. I heard the voice of the Corpse King. It told me that my rebirth was no accident. I was chosen. In this crumbling apocalypse, I would play a more significant role. I looked down at Lu Yan's cold body in my arms. His former kingdom had been completely destroyed, leaving only the silence of death and the eeriness of a new order. I had become the sole ruler of this world. I slowly rose to my feet, claiming my identity as the queen. I stood atop the ruins of a razed city. Su Qingya was nowhere to be found, likely already part of the horde. I closed my eyes, feeling the pulse of countless zombies. They were my only company. Maybe this was the ultimate price of betrayal and revenge. A complete mutual destruction, no one spared. Thinking of Lu Yan and Su Qingya, I slowly opened my eyes. In them was endless twilight and a cold, unwavering resolve. I would forever rule this world I had shaped with my own hands, until the end of time.